Hello guys, my name is Mateo Florez. I'm the head of Digital Asset Trust Anchor Group. And yeah, today I'm gonna talk about verifiable digital assets. So what if I told you that I have come across a unique opportunity that this token right here actually represents an exclusive meeting with Elon Musk? Well, some of you might think, yeah, right, for sure. Some of you, like you, are trying to scan the QR code. And many of you might be really interested overall. Well, how do I verify this claim? This is a claim of a meeting with Elon Musk, right? So how do I verify this? Many of you tech-savvy people might be, I don't know, looking up the code or a blockchain or a layer one to see if this is for real. Many of you might be, I don't know, looking into X and see if Elon Musk posted something about this. But it goes beyond that. How do Elon Musk, for instance, verify that I'm not a villain buying this token and that I'm gonna meet him and, I don't know, talk about SpaceX or something like that. Or that I'm not a paparazzi that's out to harm him. So, and this is what we're gonna talk about today. How can we create verifiable digital assets? But before we do that, I mean, you heard a lot of tokenization today, so I'm not going to talk about tokenization so much. But tokenization for me is essentially the digitalization of a claim, right? That claim can be ownership of something. That claim can be, in this case, that Elon Musk is going to meet somebody. That claim can be a lot of things. And why will you go to the hassle of tokenizing something? Well, when I have that claim digitalized, I can do a lot of things with that. I can either monitor that claim or that asset. I can manage that asset a lot better because it's digital. But I can also, in many cases, open up for monetization of that asset in ways that have never been done before. So much so that JP Morgan earlier this year actually released a report talking about a $400 billion annually opportunity of saving when it comes to tokenization of alternative assets. I'm sure many of you have seen a graph like this talking about the promises of the $16 trillion market when it comes to digital assets. But it's important to notice that what JP Morgan is doing and what others like JP Morgan are doing is traditional assets. They are taking stocks, bonds, perhaps alternative assets such as commodities, land, real estate, that already have an instrument, and they are applying tokenization to them to make them a little bit better. But what if I told you that the $16 trillion, a big part of that are assets that you and I own? Assets that you and I own, but that don't have an instrument for being digitalized and monetized the same way as those assets. And you may think, Mateo, what type of assets are you talking about? Well, here are some examples. What if I told you that many of you could have made money by traveling here? Many of you might have the right to bring 2 bags on board, but you only used 1. That other bag, those 23 kilos, that claim for that weight could have been tokenized and sold to another person that needed that overweight, perhaps. But not only that, some of you might travel here by car, right? You left an empty car space at home. That empty car space might be popular or in a popular space that somebody wants to actually pay for. And even better, that parking space might have a charging station, perhaps, that someone wants to use and pay for. That is also something that you're throwing away today. And if you happen to have a lot of land, and that land is beautiful and whatnot, you can even tokenize the rights of hunting or even using that land or camping on that land. Those are assets that you're throwing away. And this is some examples. There are many assets out there that have not been identified. And once again, that do not have an instrument today to be digitalized. So why haven't, this sounds great, right? Making money, new types of assets. Why hasn't this taken off? Well, this is how tokenization looks like today. You take an asset on the left right here, you do some asset tokenization, involving a smart contract. I'm sure you heard a lot about this today. Smart contract, encoding some data into that smart contract, creating a token and publishing that token on a DLT, a blockchain, and so on. Whilst this helps when it comes to decentralization, meaning that everybody can do it, you take a step back when it comes to verification and trustability. Like in the example of Elon Musk. How can I know that Elon Musk is actually behind this claim? And how does he know that I'm not a villain buying this token? But also when it comes to personal integrity, I'm sure many of you were at the main stage before when you heard about the examples of tokenizing stuff and tokenizing ownership. You cannot put personal information on a blockchain. Hence, you cannot protect personal integrity. So in this case, it's really hard to know what the counterpart is. I don't know if it's Elon Musk, I don't know if it's whoever. Well, this is how institutions try to solve this. You have your asset, you do an asset verification, meaning that you take the asset, look into it. You have more than often a big four company, PwC, EY. They do an asset verification, verify that you actually own the asset, that they actually exist, et cetera, et cetera. They do some validation. Once you have that asset verification on place, then you can do asset tokenization, the similar way than before. Whilst this solves perhaps for the verification and trustability of the asset, you take a step back when it comes to this decentralization. Because why? And now I need to pay some guy from PwC, right? Or PwC on EY. So let me introduce you to Elon Musk Token 2.0. What if I told you that when you scan that QR code, you were presented with information as information needed for you to verify that claim of the meeting with Elon Musk? Perhaps some legalities, perhaps some ifs and buts. What if he doesn't show up? What if he cancels at the last minute? But not only that, you were met with some type of identifier that makes you trust that it's actually Elon Musk behind this. But not only that, in the counterpart, Elon Musk knows that I'm a real person, he can look me up, et cetera, while preserving personal integrity, meaning that my data will not be shared with anybody else, meaning that nobody else can know that I'm meeting Elon Musk, because that's, can become a problem. So that's exactly what we do. We have created smart contracts that are not only machine readable, meaning code, but that also are human readable, meaning that you can encode any information needed to verify this claim in human readable text. So, like I said before, legal terms and conditions. You can embed any type of information about the asset. You can embed whatever you want that makes you trust this claim right here. But not only that, what if I told you that we created digital identities used to sign these smart contracts so that I know who I'm buying stuff from, and then the person knows what he's buying, who he's buying from, while at the same time protecting personal integrity. So my information will not be shared without my say-so. And the information about Elon Musk either. So, and the decentralization part, any of you here, anything that can be described in text can become a token. But also, there's the possibility of using already verified templates of smart contracts that are already in the system. So you solve for decentralization. But not only that, technology can only take us so far. We need you, we need private sector, we need academia, we need institutions to work together towards a future where assets are co-used, reused, and monetized. Thank you. Some questions? That QR code actually works, so. No questions? Excellent. Please, oh, sorry. For sure. So, like I said before, like anything that can be described as words. So the smart contracts that we use are contracts as we humans understand the concept. So they have legal terms and conditions, or whatever information you might deem necessary. In this case, you can put perhaps, or let's take the Elon Musk case. I, Elon Musk, I am obliged to meet person Y, or the buyer of this token, and if I don't do that, I have to pay a fee of $500, et cetera, et cetera. That is something that you can actually take to court, for instance. Yeah, something similar can be done, for instance, with the wardrobe you were talking about. Sure. So it's a self-sovereign identity, but not only for humans. I can go back a step, perhaps. It's an identity not only for humans, but for things. So that identity can be embedded into IoT devices, can be embedded into machines. We even done tokenization of cows. We put an identity on a cow. I know the main stage was talking about some chickens before. So, but it's basically anything that can be uniquely identified can become an identity, per se. So, and you also, of course, have a different types of identity or different levels of identity credibility. So perhaps an identity can be a phone number in the beginning, but the more information you put into that identity, the more credibility you have, right? So the more perhaps things you can do. But the beauty of it is that this identity system can be defined locally to the context of where the trade is done and so on. So let's say if we were to create an identity here, then we decide what is an identity here. Perhaps it's just a photo and a name, and that's an identity. So it's very flexible in that matter. But let's say if you're doing institutional transactions, that will have an identity, your passport, your et cetera, et cetera. So it's dependent on the content. And of course, if you have an identity of lower score, then perhaps you cannot do anything on a higher score and so on and so forth. So, of course. And I'm going to talk in the panel after this, so if you have any other questions, we have some people here as well that are very good at tokenizing stocks and bonds and such. So please stay here and interact with them as well. All right. Thank you very much, guys.